I am Doragons Paladin and Dragon Rider, and this is Doragons Domain, episode 21, running a one-player campaign. So if you watched my last video, maybe I talked maybe a little bit about Twitter. I was off Twitter for about a year, 3 months or something, and during that time I started running a one-person campaign. I've run one-person campaigns here and there. Not really campaigns. I've DM'd one-person things. They weren't really campaigns. I remember I played with my nephew a while ago, and I've done different people, but this would be my first campaign. With my original group that I played in my teens, there was like 3 of us, and in my group that I ran in my 20s, there was like 4 of us. I mean, players, plus me. And then I've been a player a couple times, but yeah. So last year, I started running someone. And it's someone who never wanted to play D&D. Was very, they're intimidated by it, but they just weren't inclined. Their brother had tried talking them into playing, etc. So we started getting into it, and I took a lot of material that I'd been creating on my previous vlogs, and as well as some other material that I had worked on here and there, and I started to use it. Basically, they're a water genasi warlock, born in the water plane, and banished to the material plane, so she kind of started out in Veremore, which I mentioned in one of my comments in my homebrew, and started to slowly meet characters and invite them to join her. So I started to create, and I've done this when I DM. I have had NPCs that I have in the player groups. They don't make any of the big decisions unless I roll lots of dice, and for the most part they're there to support the players, or in this case the player. Yeah, so initially there was, she met a tigrin, which is like a lion, it was like a cat person, a tigrin hunter. They weren't exactly a ranger, they were a hybrid. I blended a ranger hunter class and one of the rogue classes, and kind of created basically an archer. Before I go any further, I should tell you that the player that plays the warlock has really enjoyed the story and the campaign, and so much so that she has begun writing the story from the very beginning and blogging it. And she started doing this. She's only done 6 or 7 chapters, I guess. They're not really huge or anything, but and then I recently started to reblog, or not reblog them, but I repost them on my Doragons Kishu, Dungeons and Dragons blog. So I'll put the links down below. But I just really love her writing, and it's amazing to have it all be written about like that. But anyway, so I'll put that down there. Okay, so moving on. She hooked up with this hunter, this tigrin hunter, and then I don't want to get too much into it. It's in the story, but it's not just that. I don't want to get too much detail because it's a huge, long campaign. But then they ended up bringing on actually a couple other rangers, because they're in the forest region of Veremore, so there were lots of rangers. Next thing, they hooked up with a bard, halfling, and they hooked up with a drow sorcerer. He was a sage that was becoming a sorcerer, and so I'm playing all those characters, which I love, because I love role playing. I love doing all the voices and all that. So the group is growing. They've also have friends that they all do things with pretty regularly. And a year down the road, I mean, the group is, including hers, there's 10 members to her group, and there's an assortment of friends that they do things with. And sometimes she breaks off and does things with just a few of them, but it's been great, but it's been challenging. Maintaining the voices is probably one of the bigger challenges, especially if it's late at night and we're playing. But it's been great, and I'm kind of heavy on the story and characters, so it works pretty well with the one-player thing. It doesn't replace that group feeling, getting together, having snacks, whether it's online or offline. When I would run groups, I love to get together early and have dinner together and talk about real life. And then when we get to playing, that way, I try to bring real life into it. Not in, like I've mentioned on something I tweeted recently, like one of my table rules is you're not allowed to go on social media while we're playing. It just pulls me out of it, and it pulls them out of it, and but we can use it for looking up rules and stuff like that. And on occasion, I know some dungeon masters might text one of their players as opposed to pulling them out of the room and having a conversation. Yeah. So the biggest challenge, I think the biggest challenge of just having one player has been trying to remember the voices. And if it's like I said, if it's late at night, she'll be like, "That's not how that character sounds," and I'll be like, "Ugh." You know, sometimes I remember, sometimes I don't. Some of them sound like one another, and but for the most part, I do pretty good at maintaining that. Yeah, but I generally have about 6 things going on, which I think it can be hard. I think that the player really enjoys the challenge, but the character itself gets kind of worn out, and I have to remember to do things like, you know, have them go do things like go shopping in Waterdeep or whatever. Because even though I'm majorly homebrew, I have incorporated, as I've mentioned in the past, I have incorporated, started incorporating Faerun and Waterdeep into it. I was always curious about Waterdeep. But back on Doragons episode number 19, you can check that out. It has to do with my integration of Faerun and Waterdeep into my campaign. So yeah, other than that, so like I said, so I run lots of characters and storylines. A lot of preparation time. I think maybe even more so when it's a single player. Maybe that's not true, but it feels like you need to have a lot filling up, not the space, but this particular player, I think, but on the flip side, in groups, sometimes there's people that lead and people that don't lead, or people that are really quiet and people that are really loud, and there's people that are pushy, and it can be different kinds of things. So in that respect, generally there's not a lot of arguing about decisions that are made. If anything, because she DMs me a little bit, we actually started a thing where she was running a character for me one time, but we don't play very much. But if anything, we might have Dungeon Master conversations sometimes where she would maybe do it a little different. And that can be good. It pushes me in areas that I may not be as strong in. But it also can be frustrating a little bit sometimes when you kind of feel like you don't want to be questioned all the time. And it breaks the flow, Yeah, so this is really kind of a short video. I can't really think of, except that you can definitely ask questions, about, how it would be hard and things like that. And I'm not sitting here and saying, everybody should go out and just play with one player, but I will say it can be done, can be fun, maybe not for some people, but yeah, especially if you like role-playing and all that, and if you like to play lots of characters, because I do. I've always added people to the group, and I just have a lot more of them in this one, so yeah, so thanks for checking out Doragons Domain episode 21, and I will see you on Twitter.